Hello and welcome back to On The Rocks. Hope you're all doing well today and looking forward to today's episode as we do a big series review essentially. We're going to go through a save file and have a look at some of those interesting bits from along it and sort of recap and relive those greatest moments. First things first though, if you are watching this, I assume you have watched at least some of On The Rocks this year and massively appreciate that. You guys, the support has been absolutely mental on this save and it's been a big catalyst into me becoming a part-time content creator, which is a weird phrase to use, but it's what I am. I work part-time an actual job and this is my other job the rest of the time, so I guess it's a part-time content creator just on like full-time hours basically. But it's been the most successful series I've ever done on my channel and hopefully it's just going to be a catalyst for even more growth. So hopefully you guys can be with me for FM22. Brentford in the beta, then Wrexham for the main save to start things off, so that'll be really good fun. Of course, if you've not yet bought a copy of FM22 or pre-ordered it, then you can do so via the affiliate link in the description to 2Game. I've partnered up with these guys once again, been with them for a few years now, and they are really, really solid. They are a Sega authorized retailer, so they get all their keys from Sega, so you know it's legitimate rather than other websites that aren't Sega authorized retailers. You get access to the beta, you get an instant Steam delivery key which you can redeem on Steam, and of course you get it for cheaper than Steam as well. If you use code TomFM at checkout, you get an extra 10% off, taking it down to £32. So if you want to get the game, get it from there. You're welcome. So I guess we just get kick-started with all of this, I suppose. I mean, this is the club. We're in the Aberdeen Stadium now. This is actually our third stadium that we've been in. We started off at, I can't say the stadium. Is it Pitchroyd? I can't say the stadium name, the actual Aberdeen Stadium. But we're there for a few years before we moved to the Kingsford Stadium, I think that's what it was called. And then not long after that, we moved into this 33,750 seat Aberdeen Stadium. I'm actually very surprised by this next bit, but if we move into this general tab, loads and loads of our players are key personnel, or favoured personnel, I should say. Loads of these players who haven't even been here that long, I'll be honest with you. Players like Evie Cafdy, Herrera's not been here very long. Bryce Delaney and Evangelist Alexandros haven't been here that long. Taggett has been here forever, and he's only a favoured personnel, which I think he might feel a bit hard done by, particularly when Kevin Nisbet is an icon. I'm not entirely sure why Kevin Nisbet's an icon and Taggett isn't, but I guess he did score 85 goals in 130 appearances for us, which was not bad going, particularly when you look at his goal scoring record everywhere else, particularly afterwards, which was not great at Hull and New England Revolution. Demancic also an icon, and so is Jan Cavalcanti, which is, I think, very understandable. But what I'm kind of confused about is that Jens Neve down here is regarded as a legend. He's only been here 5 minutes. And by 5 minutes, I mean look at the average ratings. Okay, I can understand why. Maybe he's come here and he is a legend. But when players like Cavalcanti, Taggett, even Varela aren't legends, I'm surprised that he's there. But at least we're there with Alex Ferguson as the only other manager on the Legends bit. So I'm kind of happy about that. Also, 22,500 season ticket holders. That's gone up an awful lot since our very first season. In terms of affiliate clubs, we've always stayed affiliated with Atlanta United. Although at one point it did switch over for us to be the senior and Atlanta to be the affiliate. We brought in Las Palmas, OB, Rijeka and St. Pat's, but they didn't really do much for us, to be fair. No one really developed very well in those places, and they're all too rubbish to send our players out on loan to, basically. So these affiliates never really worked out that well. In terms of facilities, we already spoke about the stadium, the Aberdeen Stadium, but we've always managed to try and get top facilities. Right now, superb training and superb youth facilities. But actually, I think they could be better. I think you could have state-of-the-art. So I think they must have dropped down a little bit because they were state-of-the-art at one point. And of course, exceptional academy and exceptional youth recruitment for ideally the best regens, but the past 5, 6, 7 years our youth intakes haven't been particularly good. If we look at the honours as well, we can see that we have done extremely well through all of this. You can see that we won 3 Champions Leagues, 2030, 2033, 2034, and we lost 2 finals in 2028 and 2032. On top of that, we also won 2029 and 2033 Club World Championships. Obviously, we've qualified for the next one in another 3 or 4 years or so. So hopefully, when we do a simulation to the future, the AI will win it for us. In terms of the Scottish Premiership, we've gone on to win 10 of those. 9 of them have been in a row, which is pretty fantastic. 1 runners-up and 3 third places as well. So every single season we've done, we've been at least in the top 3. European Super Cup, won it in 2033, thankfully, obviously helping us get the sextuple this season, and then we were runners-up in 2030 after a loss to Tottenham. Obviously, loads of Scottish Cups and Betfred Cups as well, but there's a few trophies that we've won that I was not really aware of. The Under-19s Champions League, we were runners-up in 2031. Wasn't aware of that, so maybe I was, I can't remember, but we didn't win it, but we came runners-up, which is pretty good. We've won the SPL Trust Trophy in 2029 and 2033. Now, I have no idea what the SPFL Trust Trophy is, particularly because there are Irish and Scottish teams here, and it's our reserves that keep winning it. So, no idea what you have to do to qualify for this, or why our reserves are in it, or why anyone's in it really, because it's all sorts of different clubs, but either way, we've won it twice. We've also won the Reserves Cup a few times, that's the Under-23s doing that, and of course the Under-23s winning their league title only 8 times, which is a bit disappointing actually, and even worse for the Under-18s, they've only won their league 6 times. Most recently only coming runners-up. I mean, what's going on here? Hibs won it. What are under-18s doing? I told you, our youth intakes are terrible. This proves it. But I think that is all the major trophies that we could and should have won along the way, which is fantastic. And of course, managers, well, it's only me here. Been here for 13 years, I should say, 322 days. Let's call it 14 years. So let's look back at the league table each season. The first few years are probably the most interesting ones, I would say, before we go on a dominant run, right? Season 1, we came 3rd back in the day, and this is where we were clearly better than everyone else, but nowhere near the level of Celtic and Rangers. Obviously, that's probably what Aberdeen should be about in real life too. So I'm pretty happy with that first season. I think Hibs maybe gave us a favour and did us a favour and didn't do particularly well that season. Same with Motherwell and Hamilton sort of dropping off a little bit. But I was pretty happy with where we were, and obviously we improved on that the season afterwards by coming 3rd, but massively increasing our points tally from 66 to 85, just behind Rangers and quite a way off Celtic, who ended up winning the league title. But it was a big step up. We made some very good signings in that first, in between season 1 and season 2, the first real transfer window that we did. We didn't really do a transfer window in season 1, so it was good to get one out of the way for this season and dramatically improve that team. We then improved even more, only by 2 extra points and no extra places in the league, but we improved by 2 points to go 3rd in the table, and we were really close to winning it. Obviously, Rangers there 4 points ahead of us, but that's the closest we'd been to that point. So that was a really good move for us that particular season. Very happy with that one. And then the season afterwards, we won our first league title. 91 points on the board, and this one was a pretty eventful final day of the season. If you remember correctly, final day of the season, we were behind Celtic, but we won our game, whereas they were held to a draw by, I think it was Motherwell who held them to a draw. Although it can't have been Motherwell because they're not here. So maybe it was St Mirren who held them to the draw. Must have been St Mirren. Does that mean Motherwell got relegated at one point? The season before, yeah, Motherwell got relegated. So it must have been St Mirren that held them to a draw. And it was an M. So St Mirren held them to a draw on the final day of the season, whereas we won to claim our first league title in dramatic fashion. The issue was the season afterwards, that was when it got taken away from us. Going into the final day of the season, we were top of the table. We were playing Celtic. And then we lost to Celtic, who went on to reclaim the league title, and we dropped down to 2nd. And the most annoying part about this is that we then went to play the Scottish Cup final afterwards, and we lost that to Rangers. So we had a phenomenal season. Well, not really, actually. We had a good season because we were top of the table. But if you look at the points tally was way lower than what we had. In fact, that was one of our lowest points tallies we'd had to date, actually. So maybe not the best of seasons for us, but it ended on a very sour and sad note, losing the title and the League Cup. Not to worry though, because the season afterwards began a 9-season-long domination where we kept winning the league title. We won it here in 25-26, 9 points ahead of Rangers. At this point, tables start to turn the other way. We start to become dominant, Celtic and Rangers drop off, and the other teams then start to become a little bit better. You'll notice, for the most part, an upward trend in these teams' points tallies and a decrease in the points tallies of Rangers and Celtic. So that was our first 99-point season, just missed out on the 100 points. We actually dropped points the season afterwards to go to 93, and Celtic and Rangers still doing pretty well. It's the season afterwards where we dominate, getting 108 points for the first time. Celtic and Rangers drop off a little bit. Hamilton, Dundee and Hibs a little bit closer. The season afterwards, even a little bit closer still to Rangers. Celtic, I think, pulled away a bit that season. We dropped off a little bit with only 96 points. 29-30 though, 105 points for us. And this was a really big season for Celtic and Rangers in terms of the amount of losses that they had this season. 11 losses, and quite a lot of them to Hibs and Hearts and Hamilton and stuff like that, as you can see there, as these teams really start to catch up. And it looks like they might start mounting a challenge for those Champions League places. Of course, we know that doesn't happen until the season that we've just done, probably. But 30-31, 112 points for us. That was our first unbeaten season, which was fantastic. Of course, not quite getting that 100% record. The one draw held there against Celtic, where Bryce Delaney, I think on his debut, got sent off, which ruined the game for us, which was pretty poor. Obviously, season after that, 107 points for us, and again, only 10 points now between Rangers and Hearts. Season afterwards, getting even closer. I say that, it's 11 points, not 10 points, is it? So Rangers and Motherwell, still that sort of gap, isn't it? Which isn't too far away. And then, of course, the season that we've just had, we won every single game beautifully, and Celtic finally drop outside of that top three. They don't get Champions League football next season. Hearts do instead, as they beat them by 4 points. So it's quite a nice little journey. You can kind of see the domination of Celtic and Rangers slip away to us, and then they start to slip down the table as the other teams around them get better because of all the extra European football and money they're getting. So let's kick it all the way back to the first season that we did and look at the best 11 through the seasons. And we can see here there are some fantastic names in this team. Joe Lewis in goal. What a player he was. 213 appearances for us. Only 70 goals conceded, which is a pretty decent amount. Well done, Joe Lewis. There was Shay Logan, who played for us and then retired. 237 appearances. Not a bad player. Andy Considine, who played his entire career for Aberdeen before going on to become the Scotland under-19s manager until he retired in 2031. Held that job for nearly 10 years. Which is pretty mental. Tommy Hoban also at the centre-back role for us, went to Hamilton after us for a season or so, where he only played 27 games, so not really a big player for them. Johnny Hayes is a player that I don't particularly... I remember the face, but I don't remember him playing much for us at all. I only played 37 games across 2 seasons, so didn't play a huge amount, Johnny Hayes. And then we move into the midfield, where Conor McLennan was playing for us after he left us. He went on to make loads of appearances for Dundee, Motherwell and Inverness. Had a very long career with those clubs, retiring in 2031. Lewis Ferguson, how could we forget Lewis Ferguson? He left us to go to West Ham for nearly 12.5 million. That was like taking candy from a baby, where he played a fair few games for them in the Premier League and the Championship before going out on loan to Middlesbrough and then being sold or let go on a free to Coventry to play in the Championship and League One. Ross McCrory, what a player he was. Obviously, he was our first big sale. In fact, was it? Yeah, basically season 1 or season 2, we sold him for £3.5 million to Chelsea, who then immediately sold him for 2.6 to Burnley, where he played so many Premier League games for them. In fact, he's still at Burnley, is he? Or has he just left Burnley? He's just left Burnley. You hate to see it at 36 years old, but as you can see, played a majority of his career in the Premier League. Ryan Hedges, obviously he played on that left-hand side of the attack. We didn't really have many good right wings. We did have Ryan Hedges, who was quite good on the left-hand side. So Ryan Hedges played a lot of games for us, but went on to play even more for Hibs and Dundee United afterwards, staying in Scotland for his entire career after we had him. Florian Camber is a player that we had for 1 season, or was it? No, 2 seasons, clearly. 2 seasons. A goal every other game there. Not a bad return. Before he went back to St Gallen, scoring plenty of goals for them. And then over a 4-year period at Olympiacos, only played 6 games. What a shame. And then, of course, there was Fraser Hornby, who was a pretty decent striker for us. We did quite like him, but he wasn't quite as good as Florian Camber, and he's had quite the career, I must say. Never quite reaching the goal tally that he got with us at Reims, Blackburn, Lorient, Birmingham, or Crewe, where he's at now. But still looks like a handy player looking at his average ratings. Also, special mention to Brooks Lennon, who of course was the guy from Atlanta who came on loan to us virtually all the time. He was a pretty solid player to have around. And also Dylan Magooch, which apparently is actually McGeoch, but I never said it right, and you guys got a bit cross on me for it, but I like saying his name wrong because you guys got cross. Anyway, moving into the Season 2 team, not an awful lot changed. We'll just start to pick out players here who are quite important to us. Starting off with Lawrence Shankland. What a player he was for us. To be fair, I'm looking at this. 126 appearances, 35 goals. I feel like he should have scored more than that, or did score more than that. But I guess the stats don't lie. Scored plenty of goals for Al Jazeera, though. I think we sold him. It's not going to tell us here, is it? Sadly, it won't. But I think we... Oh, it does say there, sold him for £10 million. I was going to say, I think it was about 10 million we sold him to Al Jazeera for. We had to do it for that sort of money. Of course, we can't not talk about Anthony Gordon. Wow, retired now, which is quite sad. But over the course of 5 or 6 seasons with us, he played 137 games and 55 goals scored. All on loan, I should say. Never signed for us permanently. Was always on loan for us before... He obviously went to Sheffield United and did quite well there before sort of dropping off the radar at other clubs. He's actually breaking into Everton's first team in real life this season. Every time I see him on Match of the Day, I feel like a proud father. We can't not talk about Alan Campbell as well. This first proper transfer window where we signed Shankland and Campbell, 2 big names from Scottish football. They were big coups for us, and Campbell was absolutely solid. Still playing right now for Hearts, and his mentals still look as good as they did when we had him, to be fair. We had him for a long time and was quite a big part of our team for a long time, well into the championship winning years, before eventually he just was not good enough for us and went to Dundee, where he got so many assists. He was playing in the championship at this point, but loads of goals and assists from centre mid. He was probably below his level there a little bit, so Dundee probably got a bit of a steal there because we were just quite desperate to get rid of him at this point. But after that, clearly was playing below his level because he went to Hearts in the Scottish Premiership, where they've been a top 6 team for a long time and has played very well for them. There's actually quite a lot of players to talk about in Season 2 that had a big impact. There's Tom McIntyre as well, who I've always apparently said wrong, but it is McIntyre. Obviously, he came back to us when we signed Demancic and he wanted a friend to sign, and it just happened that he was also playing weirdly in Croatia with Demancic. So that was a bit of a nice... That was such a weird situation. Like, how does that come about? Either way, apparently assistant manager now, but hasn't been able to get a job since he retired. Also, Leif Davis, we had him for a long time. He now plays for Montreal, and he was a bit of a snake, Leif Davis, because we had him on loan, and then we tried to sign him, but he went to Rangers instead, which was really frustrating. So we got him on loan from Rangers before he then went back to Rangers, didn't play a game for them, and then was sold on to Torino, which was a bit of a snaky move, I must say. And then Ethan Laird at right back too, we can't not talk about him. Currently playing for Nice, actually, interestingly. He must have had a pretty decent career because he has a lot of potential in-game and in real life. And after a couple loan spells with us, went to Norwich for a loan spell in the Premiership, before a big move to Sheffield United for a long time, then a big move to Brighton, and then a big move to Nice, so he's doing pretty well. Season afterwards, how can we not talk about Ben Knight? What a player Ben Knight was. He was absolutely superb. You can see here from the goals and the assists, particularly in the 23-24 season, 12 league goals, 15 league assists. He was absolutely solid, and it was a gamble. We took a big gamble selling him to Wolfsburg for 13.5 million, and maybe we should have kept him on because Arsenal came knocking for 25 million. So did Southampton. He's only just gone to Palace for 19 million this previous season. He's 31 years old. Maybe we should have kept hold of him longer, but I think at the time it was the right thing to do. We had Alfie Devine in the middle as well. He was a good player for us. On loan, I think, wasn't he? Yeah, on loan from Tottenham for a season. Did enjoy having him for that season. We brought in John Suter. We brought him in, I remember. He was like the next big signing from Scotland, obviously from Hearts. Played 72 games for us before we sold him on to Atlanta United, and recently played for Lens. Kerr. Do I remember Jason Kerr? I don't really have any recollection. I remember his picture, but I don't really recall him playing for as much. He had 2 seasons, one where he played a lot, and the other where he didn't play at all before we sold him for 3.5 million to Basel, so maybe that's why I don't remember him. And then, of course, the big man in the sticks, Gavin Bazunu. Wow. He was a player and a half. We had him on loan, then got him on a free, which I still can't believe we did because he is such a quality keeper. Man City would be stupid to let him go on a free. And then we sold him years later for 22 million. Easy money. Gone to play very well, actually, for Le Havre in France. They're a pretty decent team, Le Havre. They are routinely, like, look, you can see here, like, they recently came third, fifth. Like, they're a decent team. So he is one of the top keepers in the world. PK, maybe a little bit unlucky not to mention PK. He was a player that came for us. Didn't actually score that many goals, but he was a big signing or a big coup for us because he came from Barcelona to Aberdeen, which at the time we thought was hilarious. Oh, and Kevin Hanratty as well. Kevin Hanratty was a player who never really got a break for us. Like, I always felt bad about not playing him enough, but we just had better strikers in instead of him. But he demonstrated his prowess. Since he left us, he's never scored below 10 league goals. That's actually mental. I feel like Kevin Hanratty may have been one that got away a little bit. He gets the goals, 22, 16, 18, 4. His average ratings are terrible, though. So does he just score, like, 5 hat-tricks a season or something like that, and then do nothing for the rest of it? I'm a little bit confused. Season afterwards, then, there's not really a huge change here. There is a big change at the back, though. 2 big signings from South America. Who remembers Johnny Herrera, who's now at Hibs, and I mention this all the time, every time I play Hibs actually. I say, oh, look, it's Johnny Herrera who used to play for us. But we bought him in for £500,000 from Atletico Nacional, sold him on for 10 million later down the line. He was our first proper big South American signing, which I was always happy with because I love signing South American players. At 6'7" as well, really good from set pieces, although his goal scoring attributes don't really do any justice to that. And then this was also the season where we signed Juan Torres, who now plays for Nice as well, interestingly. Obviously plays with whoever played for Nice earlier on. Ethan Laird, that's the one. So clearly they're battling for positions there at the moment, just as they would have battled for positions maybe in this first season at Aberdeen, which is quite interesting. Obviously played for us for quite a long time before going to Reading for 16 million, which was great. And then there was also a Brian Portier, who was a good player to bring in. He's now playing back in Argentina after we sold him for a loss, actually. One of the first players we've seen go for a loss, but Brian Portier and Juan Torres was good, but Brian Portier never lived up to the hype or the expectation that we had for him. Also started to notice that players like Tam McLumper, Harry Storm, Thad McRae are coming into the team right now. Harry Storm currently playing for Sporting. I was really cross about this one. He was a player that we always had around the club, and as you can see, like, did play a fair few games for us. Never had the goal scoring ability maybe, but he got a bit cross with me because I wasn't playing him enough. I mean, you can kind of see that here, 0 games played, right? But he refused to sign a contract and went to Sporting in Portugal instead. Of course, this is where Tam Lumper starts to make appearances in the first team. Of course, he's one of our youngsters that came through and actually has been solid. Obviously had a season at Dundee United out on loan to get some proper first team experience. We'd given him some substitute appearances, but he wasn't quite ready for our first team. Had a season at Dundee, did well, came back and was pretty much a starter for the most part that next season. And ever since, pretty much a starter until we get to maybe the very later stages where we started to rotate things around a little bit more and he'd play more Champions League games. But you can see from his average ratings and his assists just how good of a player Tam Lumper has always been for us. We love you. And then the same with Thad, right? Thad came through our youth system and we sent him on loan a couple of times actually. First to the Championship with Falkirk where he got 14 league goals in 31 appearances. Came back actually the next season and played a lot of games for us there. I'm surprised What was the logic behind this? Because that's actually a very good season he's had with us there. Why do we send him out on Hibs the season afterwards? I guess to play more games. You can see that only 21, the season afterwards only 22. He wanted a full season and we gave him a full season at Hibs, but maybe we should have given him the full season with us. It doesn't matter though, because he's still here and still plays very well and has scored some very, very important goals, particularly when it comes to the Champions League. Season afterwards then, 24-25. What season is this now? If I go back to, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4... Season 5, right? Yeah, 24-25. Season 5. Weirdly, there's no one here on right wing. But if I click on it, it's Ben Knight. So, okay, it's Ben Knight. This was also the season we signed Harry Winks, of course. This was quite the coup, being able to bring an England quality player and a former Premier League player in Harry Winks to the club and played very well for us for 66 games. Also, Jakob Suva joined the club at this point. The first Croatian centre-back that we had. Not quite the best one we ever had, but Jakob Suva. Was he always Croatian, by the way? I thought he was German. Yeah, I did think he was German. I got very confused then. I remember him being German, so I guess he's obviously been called up to the Croatian squad since he left us to go and play for Paderborn. After we signed him on a free from Stuttgart, which was a coup in itself, we sold him for 15 million, and that's just laughable. You love to see it though. We also signed Admilson this season. Now this was a big one. Admilson, who's now at Inter Milan, obviously had a long career with us before we sold him to Inter for 32.5 million. As you can see, he dropped out of favour with us. But obviously he was still very good at this point, not quite developed. More substitute appearances in this first season. Carlos Borges also there. Did we sign him from Man City? We did, on a free. Sold him to a club in the UAE for 8.5 million. Easy money, right? And also, this was, I think, one of the few bad transfers we made. We signed Thiago, and I'll be honest, he was absolutely terrible. One of the worst players we've ever had. The less said about him, the better. I mean, literally a former Champions League winner at Barcelona, Bayern, and Liverpool, I think at this point in game as well. He was terrible. Anyway, season 6, Kevin Nisbet. We spoke about Nisbet obviously earlier on, but he's in the team around this point as well, scoring goals alongside Dale Taylor. Remember him? Back in the day, we had him on loan for a season, 20 goals in 30 games, before Chelsea thought the best thing to do was not send him back to us on loan again. It would be to sell him to Hoffenheim for 16 million. Jess Finley is on the wing this time on the left-hand side. This may be the days after Anthony Gordon left. Or they're saying that Anthony Gordon's on the bench, 31 appearances. Jess Finley, 25, but got a better average. Didn't even get a better average rating. But he's in the first team anyway. So Jess Finley, welcome to the first team. You love to see it. He now plays for Galatasaray after again. He's kind of fell out. We didn't even fall out of favour. He just refused to sign a new contract, even though he did play quite a lot of games. I don't know why, but he went to Galatasaray and has done pretty well for himself. Brooke Norton-Cuffy at right back. Now, he's a player that I don't think was particularly good. We had him on loan for 2 years, and I think we only had him for those 2 years. Or maybe just one season. We just got him right at the end of that season. I think the point was he wasn't very good. But obviously, he must have improved since then, because he has gone to have a full career in the Premier League, being sold for a combined total of 85 million. So it can't be that bad. But this is where one of my favourite ever players comes in. Kaio Henrique, obviously back at the club now, but we signed him from Internacional for 16 million, the most expensive transfer we'd ever made up until that point. And we held on for him for 2 seasons. It was at the start, or just at the end of the 27-28 transfer window, that he left to join Leeds for 20 million. We just could not get rid of that minimum fee release clause. He always insisted on having it in there at a ridiculously low level. He was always going to get signed by someone, and Leeds got him, which was sad, but we got him back in the end, which made me very happy. At this point, Bazunu is still in goal, but we did sign Nicolas Fuentelbe, who is probably one of the best keepers we've ever had in any save, but the amount of money he's gone for since we sold him. We sold him to Roma for 41 million. He since went to Juventus for a total of 105 million. I've never seen a keeper go for that much. I think it started off about 80, and then he kept triggering clauses at Juventus, which kept putting that price up. And we kept getting a little bit of it as well, because we had some clauses in there for like 25% or something. So we got a bit of money for all of this stuff. But I've never seen a goalkeeper go for that much money. He is insane. And the most mental thing is, Fuentelbe is nowhere near the best keeper we've ever had in this save either. So the season afterwards, Bazunu is still actually the top keeper there, interestingly. But this is the point where we start to change formation. Gone is the 4-4-2. We're now up to the 4-2-3-1 with Jan Cavalcanti through the middle. Now, we tried to sign him for a couple of seasons. We were always pretty interested in getting him. It just took a good while to get him because he was quite expensive and we didn't quite have the money to bring him in. But eventually we did, and then the rest is history. You know how good Cavalcanti is. You know how much I love him. I think he could be the best striker I've ever had. I'd say top 3. Definitely top 3. No, can I even say that? Definitely top 5. But he could take number 1 maybe. A man that I think a couple of us may have forgotten about. Shaban. Shaban, currently playing for Barcelona. Did we sell him to Barca? And we sold him to Arsenal for 30. They sold him to Barca. So, we must have seen him in the Champions League final maybe. Did he play? No, he didn't play. And he was on the bench, unused substitute on the bench. Ah, okay. What about the one we lost, though? Did he play in that one? We can't click on it now, unfortunately, because it's too long ago. We'll never know if he played that final or not. But Shaban was a player we bought for £5 million because he had, like, what, 17 finishing. His pace he was slow, not very physical, but he just had great first touch and finishing, and it showed with the number of goals that he scored. 20, 15, 8, not so good, but 17, and then he sort of dropped off in the 2030-31 season, so we sold him in January for a big profit. At this point, Robert Dowdle makes it onto the bench as well. He's currently playing for St Mirren, who, again, another player, I think I just let him go on a free, actually. He's one of the players that I think let go on a free, as opposed to didn't sign a new contract with us because he just wasn't quite good enough. But saying that, he played 16 games in the season before we let him go. Very good average rating. Maybe he was cross with me. A lot of players got cross with me quite a lot in this save, because I always ignored them, basically. That's my method of doing things. Ignore. But Robert Dowdle, yeah, he was not a bad player for us and has gone on to have a pretty decent career with Dundee and St Mirren. Also, Le Cruz makes it onto the bench in this season too. I forgot we signed him quite early. We signed him when he was very young from... This is like Bilbao's third team. Or, yeah, Bilbao, basically, as you can see there. And actually stayed with us for a long, long time. I'm surprised he was here that long. Given its average ratings were never that great. Apart from that one season with his 15 goals, there was never anything that special about him. And eventually, a big sale to Tottenham was quite nice in the end. Season afterwards, this is where we must have changed up things a little bit, because it says Cavalcanti, the striker, there with Ferguson in behind. He stayed for a long time, Ferguson. I think our biggest transfer for a long time was Kanda Sissoko. 40 million we spent on him, and we sold him for a 50% loss in the end. But by that point, in those 4 seasons, he'd gone from the very best midfielder to one of the worst, so we had to get rid of him. Also, where Passos comes in at the back, we love Passos so much. He probably is the best left back in the game at this point, I would say. He's, if not the best, one of the best, definitely. Obviously, we let him go. We didn't let him go to PSG. The release fee clause was met and we had to let him go, but we at least made some profit on him, which was nice. He did start in both Champions League finals we played against PSG as well, so I think he can be pretty happy about that. The back line actually does change a fair bit this season. Rebel was on loan from PSG, now actually at Real Madrid. He was a solid centre-back for us for 2 seasons on loan, scoring a decent amount of goals in that time as well. Pretty happy with that, but had a great time at PSG when he played for them. And of course, big move to Real Madrid worked out quite nicely too. I don't remember Paulo Perez Rodriguez though at right back. Was he on loan? On loan for a season, that's why I don't remember him. Played very well actually in that season. 6 assists, 7.26 average rating, but I have no recollection really of Rodriguez. The season afterwards though, this is where the team goes a little bit mental. Lassialian came in to the team. We don't need to talk about him too much because we know all about him and how absolutely insane he is with his attributes. And in the end was very unlucky, I think, to be usurped by Jens Neve. Otherwise, he would still be at the club, I think. But Jens Neve is just a very special talent. But so is Lassialian. Look at the number of goals and assists and average ratings he got for us. Mental. Dan Howarth at right back? Is it Dan Howarth? Dan Howarth. Was he on loan? Lots of players have been in on loan over the... I don't remember him being very good though, but good ratings there maybe. Obviously, I think maybe we were struggling with right backs a little bit. This is where Peter comes into the team as well, by the way. I think Fuentelbe must have been sold, so we used the money to buy Peter, and he is just absolutely insane. I think the best keeper I've ever had in a save. Also just grown a beard. I've never noticed that before on him before, but he's just grown a blonde beard, which is an interesting look. But then there's also Alexandro and Demancic in the team. Demancic... I'm probably the best centre-back I've ever had in a game. So good. Oh, it turns me on a bit looking at him, if I'm honest with you. Look at these attributes. And then Sandro alongside him, not quite as good, but physically an absolute specimen with his pace and everything like that. Superb. And I guess at this point we get into a territory where the players are becoming very familiar. Procheska came for a season, didn't he? Procheska was good. And then we sold him for a lot of money to Norwich. Signed him for 11 million, sold him to 45. Just turning profit left, right and centre there. That was really good. But no one knew in the team. De Klerk and Van Steen coming this season. So Van Steen now at Napoli, obviously, after we sold him for £20 million. But it was pretty solid when we had him. I did like Mark Van Steen. De Klerk was, still is a very, very good player. I'm a big fan of him. And he has just played phenomenally since joining the club. 30-31, that's when Bryce Delaney starts to sort of play around the team a little bit, and he is absolutely superb. Obviously the top scorer of this past season with 31. Love Bryce Delaney. Sissoko's still there. Alavio kicking around at this point. Obviously he's gone to Stoke. We spoke about him a little bit earlier on, but he was a fantastic ball winner. Such a good tackler of the ball. The back line, nothing else particularly changes there. We've got Tigger McLumper, Aaron Fielding on the bench. And then I don't think much changes. Jordan Ford joins at this point for 18 million. I think at the time we thought it was a bit of a mistake and we've paid too much money for him, but I think he's shown since he's been here that he was worth every penny, apart from this past season with a 6.95 average rating. Ignore that. He's a Champions League winner, so deserves all the money. Of course, Brian Medina, very cheap bid there. Just over £1 million, or just under £1 million, and had some solid seasons with us playing in the league, more than the Champions League, I should say. So I don't think you guys thought all that much of Brian Medina. Should also say Evie Cath and Varela. Varela at this point is our star striker. He was fantastic before dropping off in the past couple of seasons or so, until we get to the 32-33, and that's when Evie Cath de Ferrera takes over, who I never thought was going to be that great. He had a decent bit of potential, and his first 2 seasons were very average, if not below average. But then he just grew up a bit and exploded onto the scene and has been absolutely phenomenal the past 2 seasons. Vangelis Alexandros, same sort of thing. Signed him because he looked quite good, but never expected to see much from him. But the past 2 seasons absolutely exploded onto the scene with 19 and 16 goals apiece. Like, absolutely mental stuff there. Stone St John playing quite a bit in the centre of midfield. He now plays for Leeds United after we let him go on a free there because he refused to sign a new contract with us because he was a little bitch. Tigger McLumper in the back line there as well. You love to see it. The young Brazilian coming through. Only 6 foot. Quite short for our centre-backs. We've seen 6'7s and 6'5s and all that sort of stuff. 6 foot's a little bit short. And that's actually this past season, looking at the dates there. All I'm saying that I don't think the new one's come through just yet. But there's not going to be much change at all. So, if we look at the overall best 11 throughout all time, this is it. Bazunu in goal. Admilson at left-back, even though he never really played left-back for us. Alexandro Domancic and Juan Torres in the back line. Weirdly, Cavalcanti in centre-mid. I guess he had to be in the team somewhere, right? So he's in the centre-mid alongside Tam Lump with Gordon, Knight and Alien on the wings, and then Varela leading the line. Look at all the goals in that team, by the way. I mean, even on the bench as well, like Shaban got loads, Alavio got loads weirdly as centre-mid. Lewis Ferguson scored a lot, Thad McRae scored a lot. De Klerk, Suva and Peter not quite so much, but they were very good defensive players. So, what a team we've had through the years. Any big records that we've broken over the time? Obviously the 38 wins, 114 points, that's never going to get beaten because that's literally the max we can do. We have fewest defeats in a season, 0. We've done that obviously a couple of times. Fewest draws, 0. We've done that this past season. 147 goals scored as well, which is pretty mental. Highest gate receipts was a Champions League group stage game. 1.3 million we made from the home game against AC Milan. That must be the first game we had in the new stadium, which is why it's so high. Average attendance has been 33,000 basically, which is pretty big. We never managed to beat the biggest win of 13-0 against Peter. Actually, I've realised most of this stuff's behind my head. If I just quickly get rid of that, there we go. You can see now, look. Never beaten that 13-0 win that they had against Peterhead in 1932, but we never had a bigger defeat than the 9-0 against Celtic in 2010 at least. We did beat Dunfermline in 12-0 though, but just couldn't quite get the 13. Obviously, we paid a stupid amount of money for Baptiste Bont, 103 million, but he was worth it for that final season, whereas the highest fee we ever received was the 55 we got for Passos. Most goals for any player in the league was Jan Cavalcanti, 199, but he never beat the 46 in a single season set by Benny Yorson in 1930. In fact, a lot of these haven't ever sort of been beaten. Jens Neve got the highest average rating. Mike Taggett, youngest ever player, 15 years old when he started playing for us, Mike Taggett. Had a good few years for us before we sold him to Union Berlin for 8.5 million. What a transfer deal that was. In fact, most of these records here just aren't us. Assists, Jens Neves, clean sheets, Peter, obviously. Jan Cavalcanti, most player of the matches. Harry Storm, youngest league player. There's nothing here that's actually that mental, to be fair. So I've been recording for a good 45 minutes or so. I'm not quite sure if there's much else we can really realistically go through that's going to be that interesting. We can look at finances, right? But there's not really a huge insight there. It only goes back as far as 2029. And as you can see, apart from one little dip underneath in mid-2032, we've been above board the entire way. So very good financially. Apart from right now. Let's not talk about right now. So I think we'll bring it to a close there for today's episode. We'll do a few more in the next few days where we go into the future, and I do want to do an episode where I literally just sell everyone. I want to see how much money we can get for them at the lower limit. I'm not going to try and barter with every club for every player. I just want to sell them all and see what we can get into the club. So thank you very much for watching today's episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. And of course, if you have done, make sure you do drop a like on the video for me. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And I will see you next time. Have a good one. Goodbye.